Think of the most famous match in WrestleMania history. Maybe you've chosen Hogan vs. Andre, or Austin vs. Bret, or Michaels vs. Undertaker. Whichever you went for, it's likely so well remembered for having a positive influence on the wrestling business. Now think of the most famous match in Survivor Series history. That's right, Shawn Michaels vs. Bret Hart in 1997, the Montreal Screwjob. While Mania gets all the glory, poor old Survivor Series' most memorable match happens to be the most controversial in WWE history. Well, that just seems like an outrage, so I'm here to stand up for WWE's second oldest pay-per-view as I take a look at some matches that Survivor Series deserves to be remembered for. I'm Adam Pacitti from Cultaholic.com, and here are the 10 greatest matches in Survivor Series history. But first, a few honourable mentions. Bret vs. Shawn, not the one you're thinking of, the one in 1992, Bret vs. Backlund in 1994, Shawn vs. Sid in 1996, and Shawn vs. Orton in 2007. That is a lot of Bret and Shawn. Oh yeah, join us. Number 10, Brock Lesnar vs. Goldberg in 2016. Yes, okay, it seems quite cheap having an 86-second match on this list, but in terms of a sheer visceral moment, it's hard to top. I think it's fair to say that Goldberg's absolute destruction of Lesnar was pant-wettingly exciting. Very few expected Goldberg to stand a chance. His return seemed to be nothing more than an excuse for Lesnar to get his win back, having lost to the WCW icon at WrestleMania 20. That match was, of course, one of the dullest in Mania history, and was akin to two large houses slowly bumping into one another over the course of several millennia. The rematch, however, shocked the world. Lesnar was still riding high on his snapping of The Undertaker's streak 2.5 years prior, so even a normal loss would have been unthinkable. This wasn't a normal loss. Goldberg hit 2 spears and a jackhammer, demolishing the Beast in incredibly quick time, while Paul Heyman lost his slimy little mind on the outside. Number 9, Team SmackDown vs. Team Raw in 2005. Of all of the wrestlers who really know how to steal the show at Survivor Series, 2 of the very best are unquestionably Shawn Michaels and Randy Orton. It's therefore fitting that the excellent elimination tag match between WWE's 2 brands came down to these 2 men, the beloved veteran and the arrogant young upstart. There was an intriguing mix of heels and baby faces on both sides, but rather than hinder the match, the unusual dynamic actually added to an excellent contest. In the closing stages, Michaels was left alone against Mysterio, JBL, and Orton. If you know anything at all about HBK, it's that he's at his most compelling when his back is against the wall, and that was especially true here. Michaels fought off 2 of his opponents but fell to an RKO after being distracted by the already eliminated JBL. Boo that man indeed. More drama was yet to follow as Orton was raised onto the shoulders of his SmackDown brandmates like a handsome, sweaty Greek statue. His moment of triumph was cut short by an ominous gong, signaling the arrival of The Undertaker, and the lead up to their bloody Hell in a Cell clash at Armageddon. Number 8, the 20-man tag team elimination match in 1988. We all know that modern wrestling is mechanically far better than wrestling of the Golden Age, but that doesn't mean the old stuff isn't worth watching. A prime example came at Survivor Series 88, where 20 men crowded around the ring apron to take part in a 10-on-10 elimination match. The Good Guy Squad consisted of the Rockers, the British Bulldogs, the Hart Foundation, the Powers of Pain, and the Young Stallions. An unbelievably stacked lineup including some of the best wrestlers in WWE history, such as Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart, Dynamite Kid, and of course Big Jim Powers. The heel team had another of the greatest tag teams ever in the form of the Brainbusters, as well as Demolition, the Fabulous Rougeaus, the Bolsheviks, and the Conquistadors. They were also joined by not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 dastardly managers. Slick, Mr. Fuji, Jimmy Hart, and the greatest of all time, Bobby Heenan. This match may sound like utter carnage, but it's definitely worth a chance, especially if you're a fan of proper old-school tag team action. Delicious. Number 7, the SmackDown 6's Triple Threat Tag Match in 2002. In the early days of the brand split, SmackDown quickly emerged as the Smarks brand of choice. Why? It may have something to do with the unbelievable talent of 6 particular wrestlers, aka the SmackDown 6. These men were Edge, Rey Mysterio, Kurt Angle, Chris Benoit, and both members of Los Guerreros, Eddie and Chavo. The 2002 edition of Survivor Series is often regarded as one of the best shows in the history of the pay-per-view, and this match is a key reason why. It's nice that SmackDown's booking team, having seen Raw's incredible plans for the Elimination Chamber main event, decided, okay, we'll just throw our 6 best guys into the same match and see what happens. Suck it, Raw. Predictably, the bout was a fantastic one, with tag champs Edge and Rey taking on the others in 3-team action, and you should definitely check it out. Number 6, Team WWF versus the Alliance in 2001. In kayfabe terms, this match is probably the highest stakes bout in the history of wrestling. The outcome of the Monday Night Wars lay in the hands of 10 men selected by Vince, Vince, Shane, and Stephanie. A common criticism of this bout is that the alliance didn't accurately represent WCW at all, and that's true. ECW had their man in there in the form of Rob Van Dam, but his only teammate that could be realistically considered a WCW guy was Booker T. The rest of the squad was made up of WWF turncoats Steve Austin and Kurt Angle. Oh, and Shane McMahon, who just loves inserting himself into elimination matches now, doesn't he? Thankfully, the match itself was a highly dramatic one. The Rock and Austin squaring off again, both brothers of destruction hurling people around, and of course Chris Jericho almost ruining everything for his entire promotion because he was jealous of The Rock. Lovely stuff. The final two were, fittingly, Rock and Austin. Even though we all knew Team WWF were winning, we all sort of forgot that when crooked referee Nick Patrick screwed The Rock out of a pinfall. Fortunately, Kurt Angle revealed himself to be an extra sneaky double agent and clocked Stone Cold with the WWF Championship to save the day. Number 5, Diesel vs. Bret Hart in 1995. At Survivor Series 1994, Bret Hart lost the WWF Championship to Bob Backlund in an opinion-dividing main event. It was long and compelling, but many wondered why the belt was being put on a man whose heyday had long been and gone. The answer came about a few days later as Diesel, aka the 90s Roman Reigns, squashed Backlund at a house show to win the title. Yes, Backlund was merely a transitional champ in order to transfer the belt onto Vince's dream man. He was tall, he was muscular, he had long hair, he wore black, he didn't throw his arms wide and shout, "Hoo-ah!" But the similarities are still quite evident. Diesel held the belt for almost a year until this match with Bret Hart at Survivor Series 1995. Bret's that kid at school who's just good at everything, so obviously he crafted a wonderful match to get the very best out of the less mobile Diesel. The finish was a thing of genius, as the champion knocked Bret from the apron, sending him crashing through the announce table. Many thought this to be a legitimate accident, helped by the reaction of Diesel, who scrambled to finish the match quickly, only to be pulled into a surprise roll-up from the Canadian. Finally, the belt was in the hands of its rightful owner, and he'd never suffer another heartbreaking loss at Survivor Series again. Never, ever again. Number 4, John Cena vs. Shawn Michaels vs. Triple H in 2009. This one is just brilliant. It's not one of the most memorable bouts in the careers of any of its participants, but its sheer quality shines through. The beginning of the contest is one of the most exciting of any main event ever, as Michaels unthinkably drilled his best friend with a sweet chin music, sending him tumbling out of the ring and shocking the crowd. Most assumed that the match had been set up to stack the odds against Big Match John, but HBK reversed those expectations with a single action. The rest of the match showed just how good triple threats can be. In order to elevate the drama of the bout, all three men moved with expert timing. In fact, it was a little bit frightening. You could say that Shawn's kicks were as fast as lightning. Come to think of it, it's as if they were kung fu fighting. Number 3, the first ever Elimination Chamber in 2002. We now accept the Elimination Chamber as an annual staple of WWE's calendar, but back in 2002, it might have risked seeming overblown. It was Hell in a Cell's monstrous cousin, but subject to more rigid rules than its predecessor. It was crucial, therefore, for the first Elimination Chamber match to be a good one, thereby proving that the stipulation worked, and was here to stay. WWE needn't have worried. The competitors were Chris Jericho, Shawn Michaels, Kane, Rob Van Dam, Booker T, and the big bad final boss of wrestling, Triple H. The crowd favourite was unquestionably HBK, who had returned to the ring earlier that year despite fears that he'd never be able to wrestle again after a back injury in 1998. Miraculously, not only could Shawn wrestle again, but he seemed as good as ever, losing to Triple H in a bloody street fight at SummerSlam. Still, his performance in the Elimination Chamber defied belief. Do we have to talk about his brown pants? Let's not talk about his brown pants. Number 2, Team Austin vs. Team Bischoff in 2003. In 2003, Raw's GM position became something of a sitcom, with wacky opposites Steve Austin and Eric Bischoff squabbling over the position. Will they ever be able to coexist? Tune in next week for more hilarious antics. Unsurprisingly, they couldn't get along, and things came to a head at Survivor Series. Both men picked 5 representatives, with the winner taking sole control of Monday Night Raw. Team Bischoff was the perfect mix of sliminess and brawn. Team Austin, on the other hand, was full of babyface heart. Steiner was the first man eliminated, which is just baffling, really. But Team Bischoff recovered to hold a 3-on-1 advantage in the closing stages. A heavily bleeding HBK faced off against Jericho, Christian, and Orton, with the hope of saving Austin's job. He eliminated Christian and Y2J in heroic fashion and looked to be heading to victory, but while Stone Cold was distracted by punching Eric Bischoff a lot of times on the entrance ramp, Batista ran in and helped Orton to a heartbreaking victory. Despite its deflating ending, this match really showed how well the Survivor Series format can be used to tell a compelling story, and for my money is the best traditional elimination bout in the pay-per-view's history. Number 1, Bret Hart vs Stone Cold Steve Austin in 1996. In their prime, Bret Hart and Stone Cold were both very, very good at wrestling, and were arguably never more exciting to watch than when they were wrestling each other. The most famous clash was, of course, the transcendent submission match at WrestleMania 13, but many people forget that their bout just a few months prior was very much on the same level. Unlike their more famous Mania rematch, this bout was unrestrained by complex heel/babyface dynamics. Here instead, we saw a purely babyface Bret take on an entirely sadistic Austin, and the pair proceeded to put on an absolute masterclass. Ultimately, this being a number 1 contenders match, WWF weren't quite ready to strap a rocket to Austin's back just yet. Stone Cold lost the bout in ingenious fashion as the wily Hart kicked off the turnbuckle while trapped in the $1 Million Dream, flipping himself over into a pinfall and defeating his younger foe. I've been Adam Pacitti from Cultaholic.com, and that was our list. Do you agree? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget, bloody join us.